Well, greetings, world, and greetings, Seven Spot. It is time. I'm doing it again. It is time for another virtual and socially distant sevens. Today, we have the great pleasure of doing our live stream in the same time zone. I'm going to be speaking with Bruce Ward, and he's going to be telling us all about his fabulous family seven, Lotus 7, with a terrific SCCA pedigree and how it was lost to time but found its way home. So just a little bit about what's happening here. I'm broadcasting from the beautiful South Surrey Seven Spot Studios, where the weather outside today is a balmy 58 degrees, and where I'm talking to Bruce in Palm Springs area, it is a bit warmer. It is 82 degrees. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring Bruce into the picture now. Good morning, Bruce. How's the weather?
Good morning, Jim. Well, we're expecting about 102 here today, so it's cooled off quite a bit.
Well, I don't even know how to respond to that. It is nice. We had a chat previously about how I love the desert area. I just flat out love it. It's great. So you've got a terrific story there. You were there with your the whole family. I think you've got your son. I believe I saw. Is it Melissa, your wife, and you got the grandkids there? So we may have some interesting sound effects as we go through this. But why don't you tell us the story about your fabulous seven?
Well, it really is a remarkable story, and the first thing I have to do is beg the forgiveness of your viewers for my excessive pride in the car, but I think you may agree that it's well founded. This car was originally purchased and raced by my dad back in 1964. He bought the car from Bob Chalmans in February '64, and here you can see the license plate frame. Bob Chalman, Akiri Shirley, Manhattan Beach, and that frame was actually originally on my Lotus Elan, but I have moved it over to the Super 7. Okay, when my dad raced this car, there was no license plate. The specialized license plate that you see there is one of the very first specialized license plates in California.
Okay.
And I've actually had 7 guys offer me a substantial amount of money for that license plate. But in any case, he immediately went to racing with it, and he raced in the Pacific Division of the SCCA.
Yes.
And he actually ended up winning that division.
Yes.
In 1964. He ran in a total of 21 races and finished in first place. 13 times he got first place.
Wow.
3 of those were first overall. And when I say overall, they almost always raced with the A and B production cars. And this is a C production car, so it was considered slower than the Cobras and the Corvettes. He actually ended up beating every Cobra and every Corvette on the West Coast in 1964, at least once.
Wow, nice.
He came up against a B production Corvette in 12 races. And out of those 12 races, he beat that Corvette. A guy named Fred Sutherland drove it. He beat that Corvette 8 times out of the 12 races. So when you had a tighter, twistier track, the 7 was very competitive with them. If you had some big long straightaways like at Riverside, the Corvettes and the Cobras had a 30, 40, sometimes 50 mile an hour advantage over the 7. So that long straightaway put the car at a distinct disadvantage. But on those shorter, twistier tracks, he was right in there with them all the way.
Cool.
Now, I have posted a number of pictures, one of which is actually a starting grid where he's sitting in front of Ed Leslie's Cobra, and he actually had beat Ed Leslie the day before, which was at Tucson. And it's kind of funny because the Cobra, of course, has a lot more horsepower, a little over 300 horsepower. This car, 86 horsepower.
Okay.
So he had a little chat with Ed Leslie right before the race, and he told Ed Leslie, I said, well, I'll tell you what, when the flag drops, I'll go ahead and we've got a helicopter flying overhead here right now. I don't know how much
that's all right. Maybe I can just pause for a moment because we can do a little bit of a technical adjustment. I think that your microphone has slipped down a little bit, and we're getting a little bit of the noise of it brushing against your coveralls. Could you just move it up? Does it have a clip on it by any chance?
Does what have a clip on it?
The microphone that is hanging down on. Yeah, it's lost its clip. Yeah, just hang it onto your. I think it's got a clip that clips on there because we were hearing you breathing. There we go. Oh no. Oh dear. It's like we got a momentary. That's better.
Okay.
Oh, it seems to have been.
There we go.
Oh, that's perfect.
Okay, well, I'll just hang on to it here then.
Yeah, that's better because we're getting. I could hear you breathing real well, but I couldn't hear you speaking too much. So this is great.
Where were we? Oh, Ed Leslie.
That's better. Yeah.
In any case, my dad told him, I said, when the flag drops, I'll just jump over to my left a little bit and you can go on by. He was also sitting on the grid with a couple of A production Corvettes. And of course, Ed Leslie was interested in beating them. My dad was interested in beating the C production cars that were behind him there. So just kind of it was always interesting having so many different types of cars running together in those days, which really livened up the race. But in any case, he ran this car just in 1964. He actually showed up to one slalom race in early 65. And slaloms back then were extremely popular. You'd have 150, 200, sometimes 300 or more cars show up for these slalom races, what we typically call autocross now. But a guy showed up with one of the slalom snakes. Carroll Shelby actually made two of his Cobras specifically for slalom racing.
Oh yes.
He had them geared way down, and the suspension was set up specifically for slalom racing, and they were very competitive. As a matter of fact, the two cars that he produced for that, as far as I've been able to tell, they only lost one slalom race that year, and that was to this car right here.
Wow, nice. Now, this car has excuse me for jumping in, but it's a little bit different than a number of the other sevens that were, I guess, in the SCCA circuit. Did they have a different engine specifically?
Yes, this car is very unique in that respect. It is one of, as near as I can tell, 8 SCCA Super 7s. Now, there were a lot of Super 7s that ran in the SCCA. However, the factory in England actually produced 8 of these cars specifically for the SCCA. And the reason for that is that the 1340cc engine, they stopped producing that, early to mid 1963.
Okay.
But the SCCA did not allow anything larger than the 1340cc engine. So they had begun to put in the 1498 cc engine, but that was illegal in the SCCA for C production. They were too fast, I guess. but they ended up producing an additional 8 cars with the 1340cc engine,
Mhm.
and they gave it a higher compression ratio. So it
Okay.
had the same horsepower, but a little bit more torque.
Yes.
And those 8 cars came with not only the engine that was tweaked a little bit, but they also came with the wobbly web wheels. So there were
Nice. Yeah.
very, very few Lotus 7s that came out of the factory with the wobbly web wheels. About a dozen, as far as I can tell. 8 of those did come to the United States for SCCA racing.
Mhm.
Now, it also came with the wider rear fenders than was standard at the time.
Yes.
These are not the original wings on this car. I do have the original front wings
Yes.
in the garage, but these are not them as well. Most of the rest of the car is very original.
Mhm.
The windscreen that you see here, the street windscreen, did not come with the car originally. It only came with the Brooklyn's windscreen
Right.
that you see here.
Yeah.
And it did not come with a tonneau cover or the rain gear. However, the guy who bought the car from my dad in early 1965 purchased the rain gear directly from the Lotus factory.
Okay.
Now, I love to drive the car with the rain gear on, but it makes it very difficult to get in and out because you have about that
Yes.
much space to climb in there. And let me tell you, it isn't pretty. In fact, if there's anybody around with young children or small pets, I have to tell them to cover their eyes because it's not something they want to see. But occasionally, I've had my wife in the car with the top on, and
Yeah.
getting in and out is quite intimate. And it usually involves a lot of giggling and a few grunts here and there, but
Yep.
it can be done.
Mhm.
So this was added to the car afterwards. Now, originally, the car had a factory roll bar, which my dad replaced with
Yes.
just a single hoop.
Mhm.
One of the other owners put this roll bar on, and you can see this tonneau cover here was originally made for the hoop
Yes.
and was modified to accommodate the full row bar here.
Yeah. I see
But
that.
when my dad sold this car, he wrote a 9-page letter to the guy he sold it to. If you want to come on
Mhm.
over here, let's see if I can find that. Here it is here.
Mhm.
And this describes a lot of the races he was in. Now you see it's on West Riverside Veterinary Hospital letterhead there. My dad was a veterinary doctor.
I see. Yep.
So for some reason he happened to write it on this. But in any case, this letter actually stayed with the car through 6 different owners.
6 different owners.
6 different owners between my dad and myself. And
Wow.
we got the letter back along with the car. So that, that tied the perfect provenance, if you will.
That's
Now,
amazing.
yeah, it really is. Now, a couple of other things I wanted to show you on the car. You may be aware of the haphazard way in which Lotus often kept their records.
I've heard of
This
it.
car, pretty much everything on it matched the build card, the
Mhm.
chassis plate number. There's a
Mhm.
frame number right here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but that matched. The
Mhm.
carburetor numbers matched, and
Mhm.
the engine block number matched.
Yes.
The only thing that didn't match was the build card described the car as being yellow, and
Oh.
it came brand new to my dad, red.
Mhm.
So that was a little bit confusing, and I talked to some of the guys who were involved with it, and they said, well, that happened quite a bit, but if you come around here, Paul, you can see here on the edge of this nose, yellow underneath the green, and there's even a little bit of red in there. I don't know if you can see that as well. But so at some point, this nose was yellow, and perhaps they painted it red at the time to match the rest of the car. Who knows how that happened, but it's just kind of interesting that it described it as yellow, and there indeed is some of the yellow described in that build card. I do have the engine out now. I've got some issues with the clutch, so I'm sorry I can't really show you the engine right now, but we do have the original engine for the car, as well as it's got the original, all the running gear, the wobbly webs, which we showed you there, are original and extremely rare. But the car is just a blast to drive, as most 7 owners know. And I don't have the talent to race it. I tried a little bit of that, but it was not good. No. So I mostly drive it on the street, and I do take it to car shows and such. I've had it a number of very prestigious car shows. In fact, you'll notice my hat here is from the Quail. In 2011, we took it up there. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the Quail, it's done in conjunction with Pebble Beach.
Yes.
Now, that year, Pebble Beach, it would cost you $150 just to get in to look at the cars. The Quail is focused more on racing. Yes. And to get in to see the cars for that cost you $400. So a little bit of difference there. In fact, it's kind of funny because one of the car magazines that year did an article on the best car shows to go to that year. And they couldn't recommend the Quail because the tickets were all sold. It was very expensive. But what they did recommend was the parking lot outside of the Quail for the attendees, people going in to see the cars. The cars in the parking lot were amazing enough to make their top 10 list of car shows to go to. So I got a kick out of that. I thought it was kind of funny. One of the things I love about the car shows is the kids. The local car show that I go to from time to time, most of the kids that show up there, especially the little ones, all they can see is Chevy door handles and do not touch signs and things like that. I remember being at a car show once, and I spotted this kid. He was about 30, 40 yards away. And I saw him turn around and spot the car. And his face just lit up, and he literally ran over to the car. His dad was right behind him, but couldn't quite catch him before he got to the car. I said, well, go ahead and climb in. They're quite certain that the car was made just for them. Because it's right at their level, and they can climb in without, of course, no doors on it or anything. But in any case, a lot of fun. One car show that I was at was out at the Desert Concourse in Palm Springs, and a guy named John Morton was there. Now, John Morton was a pretty famous IMSA driver. He drove for the Group 44 Jaguar team back in the 80s, and also he worked for Carroll Shelby, and he drove for Pete Brock's BRE Datsun team and won a number of championships with them. So fairly famous race car driver here in the United States back in the day. And he happened to show up at this car show, and he actually got his racing career started in 1963 in a Lotus Super 7. Kind of like Derek Bell. Derek Bell also got his start in a Super 7.
I'm going to jump in here just to help the folks along at home. You are an absolute treasure trove of information because, folks, Bruce is a historian. He was the previous director of the Riverside Auto Museum, so he knows a bit about the history of these cars.
Well, thank you. I feel like I don't know nearly enough, but I guess that's when you actually just begin to start to know stuff, is when you realize how little you know.
Mhm.
But John Morton, anyway, he, of course, was very attracted to the car. I told him all about it, and he just kind of hung out with the car for most of the day. At one point, I went to lunch, and usually my wife will take over telling people about the car when they come by.
Mhm.
And I came back with my food, my lunch, and I sat down, and John Morton was sitting there telling everybody about the car. And so I just sat there eating my lunch, listening to John Morton tell people about the car.
About your
And
car.
yes. And of course, he was really knowledgeable about Super Sevens in general,
Mhm.
and I understood quite a bit of what I had told him about the car as well.
That's a
But so
great
that
story.
was, yeah, that was kind of cool. But another cool story at a car show, the one up at the Quail, had a guy come by, and he stood here looking at the car, and he says, "Boy, I just, in 1967, I had just gotten out of the Army, and a buddy of mine had one of these, and he took me for a ride in it that I'll never forget." And he was just, reminiscing about that ride in his buddy's car. And
Mhm.
then he went over and he looked through my notebook.
Yeah.
Another little thing I want to show you here. He, I have here the full circle of the
Of,
owners of the car, with my dad and my mom at the top,
right.
and then myself over here. This guy, Dean Watts, bought
Yes.
the car from my dad, and so on and so forth. But he saw this, and he goes, "Dean Watts is my buddy. This is the very same car that I got a ride in 50 some odd years ago." And he pulled out his cell phone and he called Dean,
Yeah.
and he said, "You'll never guess what I'm standing next to." So he thought that was pretty cool. And what a small world kind of a story that
No kidding. If
that
cars could tell stories, they would.
yes. Now, these are just a few of the trophies. This is my dad's helmet that he used to drive the car.
Cool.
This was the spare wobbly web that came with I don't have a tire on it now, but that's the wobbly web that came with the car
Very, very
originally,
cool.
along with a few trophies or
Mhm.
flags there from
Mhm.
back in the day. This is California Sports Car Club region of the SCCA, Cal Club.
Yes. Yep.
And that's the region that he belonged to. Cal Club and SCCA for quite a while were at odds with each other,
Okay.
and they finally got together in 1961, I believe, and been together ever since. And
Mhm.
SCCA ran all kinds of things in amateur racing as well as professional racing with the Formula 5000, Can-Am, and
Mhm.
various other things. But number of the trophy plates as well that collected over the years. As a
Wow.
kid, I played with a lot of those trophies, and many of them were destroyed as a result. But I do still have quite a few, and I did pull the trophy plates off of some of those destroyed ones.
Right.
But in any case, yeah, the car is just a lot of phenomenal stories with it, and
Now
it's
I got.
been.
I'm going to bring us to one point in our story. This is, I've written up the storyline for this as Lost in Time and the Last Survivor. Could you tell us why it is the last survivor?
Well, I mentioned that there were 8 SCCA 7s that were produced.
Yes.
And as near as I've been able to tell,
Hmm.
this is the last of those 8 cars.
Wow.
Now, John Watson may be able to tell you a little bit more about that. I
Hmm.
actually talked to a guy, 5, 6 years ago,
Hmm.
who had a car that had one of the SCCA numbers on it.
Yes.
But after chatting with him for about a half hour on the phone, I found out that the only thing that was original to that car were the 2 carburetors. He actually got the numbers on the carburetors are part of the Lotus records, but he got these 2
Right.
carburetors, and he literally built a brand new car around these 2 carburetors, and he
I
presents it
understand.
as one of those SCCA 7s. So
Yeah.
I really do consider this the last known survivor, known by me.
Hmm.
Again, who knows? There may be some in a barn somewhere. Now, one of the
Hmm.
other kind of funny things about this is, probably 12, 13 years ago or so, I found a car on the internet on one of the Lotus 7 websites
Yes.
that there was a guy who had pictures of his car, and he was
Hmm.
claiming that it was SB 1843,
Yeah.
this car. So I contacted the guy who ran the website, and I said, that car is a fake. I've
Hmm.
got the real one. And he
Yes.
said, prove it. So I sent him photographs of the chassis plate, the frame number, the carburetor, and
Hmm.
I proved it to him to his satisfaction. And then he posted that the other car indeed was a fake car. So
Wow.
this particular car has the honor of being duplicated, if you will,
Yeah.
and kind of like the Lotus Elans. My dad, when he sold this car in early '65,
Hmm.
he bought a 26R, a Lotus
Yeah.
Elan 26R.
Yeah.
They made about 95 of those, and of the original 95, there are only about 200 that exist now. So
Yeah.
they're they're often copied and duplicated and presented as the real deal.
Yeah.
And this one is no exception to that as well. That Lotus Elan, interestingly enough, the 26R, as far as I've been able to tell,
Hmm.
is the only original owner 26R in the world. Every other one of those 95 cars has been sought, sold and resold and bought and rebought and so on. We have the only original one, original owner one.
Wow.
So that's kind of cool as well, but not directly related to this. So anyway, I could go on for a long time about the car, but did you have any specific questions that
Well, no,
you
I
wanted to
mean,
ask?
what really I loved, and I've told everyone, and I told you, is like, well, the thing I love most about the cars is the way the cars can tell a story of our lives, and I am just so totally pleased. I'm going to bring myself back into the picture here. I am so pleased to have the opportunity, Bruce, to meet you and to have you share your family story, because it's great. Thank you so very much.
Well, you're certainly welcome. And I always, as most car guys, like to talk about our cars.
Oh yeah,
And I
and
certainly love to
I,
talk about this one. No
yeah,
doubt about
and
it.
there's lots
So,
of beautiful nuts and bolts and provenance and all of those things. But wow,
yes.
what a touching story! How your dad raced the car. It's a championship winning car. It's a unique car,
Mhm.
and somehow it slipped out of your family's ownership and went through 6 owners and
Six
found
different
its
owners.
way back to you. Mostly because the fellow who's holding the camera right now found it on the interweb.
That's right. Yeah. And we were able to track the guy down who, well, Joel Lipkin vintage raced the car quite a bit,
Yes.
and lives up in the Bay Area, as far as I recall. And he had written an article about the car, and he actually mentioned my dad as the original owner.
Wow.
So Paul saw this, spotted this. We were able to track the guy down. Well, he had long since sold the car
Mhm.
to another guy, and that guy had sold it to another guy. Uh, Joel Lipkin was actually the fifth owner of the car, and
Mhm.
uh, the current owner at the time lives up in Petaluma, just north of San Francisco, and we were able to track him down, and we contacted him and told him, that my dad was the original owner of the car, and was he interested in selling it? And he wasn't at the time, but he did contact us about a year later and said, yeah, I'm ready to sell the car. So I paid about 10 times what my dad paid for the car in order to get it back. Yeah, pretty amazing. But in any case, it found its way home, and my granddaughter, when she sees the car, she refers to it as Daddy's car, which is Daddy is Paul. So it's already his as far as she's concerned.
That's wonderful. That is so wonderful.
Now, one thing
Bruce,
else I want to point out, a couple more things here. I've got right here is John Morton actually signed the car. It's pretty faded at this point.
Oh, I can make that out a little. Yeah.
Kind of make that. That's John Morton's autograph there. Also, this paint job on here is 27 years old. So the car is in pretty bad need of a restoration, but it's still a lot of fun to drive. And I debated whether to restore it like this, because this is the same kind of livery that my dad had actually done the Elan in, the 26R. And the car was originally red. My wife, she's a little more color oriented than I am. She said, no, you got to keep it like this, British racing green with a yellow stripe, just like the Elan. But the historian in me said, no, I got to take it back to the original red. So that's probably what I'll do here in the near future is do the original red. You can see on the dash here, the guy who bought it from my dad painted it black, but you can see bits of the red. Right there in there, and I've put a few of the trophy plates on there as well. The darker gauges there are not original, but you can see the two more faded ones. Those are original gauges there as well. The car does have its original skin, its original frame, and those are pretty rare these days. I have anecdotal information about how many of these sevens have their original frames and skins, and it comes in at less than 200. They originally produced just under 3,000 of the sevens in 4 different series, and there are about half of those still in existence, from what I can tell. And only about 10 or 15% of those have not had their frames replaced. So it's a unique car in that regard as well. So a great deal of it is original. So in any case, it's been a lot of fun talking with you here, Jim, and I thank you for the opportunity.
I say thank you. It's not about me. This is about you and your car and your story. And so for all of us at 7 Spot, once again, we say thank you. And to which I'm going to say, Paul, thank you for holding the camera and finding your dad's car for him. And right now I'm going to say thanks again, and we'll look forward to seeing you at 7 Spot.
Very good. Thank you, Jim.
You bet. Bye for now.